Hey guys! Okay, so it's time for the Grace and Frankie ranking video. And it is April 29th. It is still April 29th. It is barely April 29th. I don't even know if it's still going to be April 29th when I finish filming, but it was when I started. So that's good. I kind of made my goal, but not really. I tried. But yeah, let's jump right into this. I will say, I had some trouble with this ranking. Like, it was a lot harder ranking than Golden Girls just because there was so much going on in every episode. There was usually at least 3 plots. And just, balancing that all out basically meant that, there was usually something I liked about most episodes. But just try to balance it all out, I feel like it's a very fluid ranking for the most part. Like, I feel like it could definitely change a lot of the episodes, probably especially in the middle, could probably fluctuate depending on the day for this one. But here we go. This is the best I could do. So hopefully it's, hopefully it's okay. Okay, so yeah, let's get right into it. As always, there will be spoilers. Okay, so starting off at 94, we have the bunny. The reason I hate this one is because of the animal death. Other than that, it's a good episode, but for the most part anyway, but the animal death really, I don't like that in shows. It's personal. I really don't like when it's used for comedy, and I feel like here, they're really not acknowledging enough that an animal died. I'm not gonna laugh at that. 93, The Alternative. Ooh, I hate this episode. I think it's gimmicky, and I think it's pointless, and I think it's even worse coming at the end of a season where, honestly, it could have really used a nice closure episode versus a gimmicky that episode. Oh, so annoying. And it felt like filler, and I hated it so much. And I hated it. It didn't make any sense. Because you can assume that Babe sent them the dream. That's what I do, because I don't know what else to assume. But, it's still, they never explain it, and then they're just all good again. And it's so weird. I hate it. I'm sorry. Oh, I guess it was okay to see, some of the changes. That was interesting. But other than that, just, no. Wow, and my phone just scrolled way up. So sorry, I'm just scrolling down to where I need to be. Okay, 92, The Casino. Another filler episode in season 7 of all places. They did not need a filler there. I didn't care for the episode anyway, just them at the casino, I don't know, I just didn't care for it. It didn't need it. Didn't need that. There were a few things that were okay in it, but I also didn't care for Bud's storyline. I just don't know why they put this in. I mean, it was just, it felt so weird and shoehorned in and kind of out of character. It kind of felt in character, but at the same time, the way they did it felt out of character, I guess that makes any sense. 91, The Scent. This episode was just kind of weird. I didn't mind the Frankie and Joan Margaret stuff. And the ending was sweet. But, I mean, they were, the whole thing with, they kind of addressed Grace's drinking, but then they didn't. And the scent for, say, Grace, did we need that? Was that a thing that was necessary? I just don't think it added to anything, personally. And it wasn't fun to watch. 90, The Pot. This episode has a sweet ending with Grace and Frankie resolving their fight, but Frankie was very over the top in this one. She crashed Bud and Coyote, or Bud and Allison's date night. And she dragged Coyote into it. Yeah. I didn't care for it. Grace High was funny, though. And I did like how they, the plot roped in all the kids. I enjoyed that. But still. 89, The Funeral. I just don't enjoy a lot of season 1 episodes, personally, because, again, what I love is their friendship. And that hadn't really, it was still getting off the ground by that point, which makes sense, because that's the whole point of the show. So it's not really the show's fault. I just, personally, it's a personal thing. 88, The Gun. So this is the part 1 of the fight that ended in the pot. And this is, Grace has a gun. And she shoots Frankie's dummy because she thought it was like an intruder. And Frankie was upset about that with good reason. But the way she handled it was, you could say, oh yeah, it's Frankie. But, I mean, she can handle things better than that. Anything would be better than that, or at least almost anything. Sorry about the camera angles here. I know they're probably not great. Anyways, yeah, it really got to me in that episode. Because, again, it makes you almost, I didn't, but it does kind of make you almost want to root for Grace, because Grace is, like, making you more sense, but she's wrong. Like, Grace is so wrong in this episode, and that never really gets resolved, either. 87, the death stick. Just thought everyone was just kind of out of character in this episode. Not out of character, but just, I don't know, the whole thing was a little... I just didn't care for it, personally. The stuff, I'm not talking about all the plots in these episodes. Oh, I will say about the gun, I did enjoy the Robert going to see his mother. I thought that was an interesting thing to do. I think that was the gun. I hope it wasn't the gun, because otherwise I'm making no sense. Yeah, I'm not mentioning all the plots, because honestly, I cannot keep all those straight in my head, because there was a lot. I kind of try to focus on the Grace and Frankie stuff, because, Grace and Frankie are the title characters. Robert and Saul also they're also important, but the kids are not important in my head. In a sense, they're important, but, when I'm thinking about plots, theirs are probably going to be the ones I don't necessarily think of the most. But yeah, if I don't mention every plot in every episode, that's why. I'm just kind of thinking about Grace and Frankie for the most part, just because, again, they are the main characters. I mean, the show's called Grace and Frankie, so yeah, that's, Okay, anyways, my weird justifications aside, 86, the landline. Grace and Frankie were separate for this one, so I didn't love that. Saul and Frankie were together, and I don't love that. The whole soulmates thing, there's no way Robert wasn't going to get mad about that, and it felt kind of contrived, and I did not care for it personally. Again, I'm not saying that has to be romantic. It doesn't, obviously, but just the way it was done here, I just didn't care for it. The stuff with Grace was okay. I just didn't care that much. I don't know. It didn't really work for me personally. I'm sure it's relatable to I'm not the main demographic for this at all, but for me, it just didn't really work for some reason. I don't really know why. It just didn't. Okay, 85, the fake funeral. Yes. Second last episode of the show. And the only good thing about it for me was Grace realizing that she needed Frankie in that meeting. That was the only good thing about it. The rest of it, I don't get the fake funeral trope. I don't understand why it's a big trope. For me, it's nah. But the stuff, first of all, why was Barry there? Him and Brianna are broken up. It felt weird. And also, all the stuff with Frankie and, no one being able to think of stories that didn't include Grace just felt really, guys, come on. I can think of stories that don't include Grace. Then again, I've watched this series multiple times, and again, I used to have it practically memorized, so maybe I'm a little biased there. And it was very notable in this episode because everyone was together. Most people were together. It was very notable that neither Frankie nor Grace had any idea about Robert's Alzheimer's. And that felt strange to me. 84, the apology. Personal one, I just didn't care for it. This was the first time that Santa Fe was brought up, so that was pretty depressing. And the whole thing with Robert and his mom dying was, and then, Grace helping him, that was nice, I guess. It just didn't work for me personally. It wasn't a terrible episode. Honestly, again, a lot of these have things I like, things I didn't like, but this one's definitely a skip when I rewatch for the most part. 83, The Wish. A few things that made me a little, this. Okay, so I liked the stuff with Frankie and her doing the wedding, even though it was the last thing she probably wanted to do. I liked seeing Grace try so hard to make it work. Robert's heart attack was definitely I did not see that coming. So that was sad. But a few things in this episode, there was this running joke with Mallory, and it was leading up to the reveal that she was pregnant, but it felt, it would have been more in place than the Golden Girls in the 80s than now. I just felt a little uncomfortable, and yeah, I don't think it was needed. 82, the one at a timing. This is funny. I laughed during this episode. It cracked me up. But Frankie wouldn't do it. She wouldn't cheat. I don't see it. And that brought the whole episode all the way down for me. All the way down. 81, the loophole. Didn't care for Grace's story in this. That's why it's so low. However, Frankie and Brianna was good. Saul and Robert were great. Love seeing them, like, fight back and forth. Like, it was supposed to be about Frankie and Brianna, but then it clearly wasn't. 80, the highs. Yeah, this one was a bit of a rocky one for me, too. It was hard to watch, which, in a way, like, I have episodes that are higher up that are really hard to watch, and I think it's done well. This one, it wasn't done terrible, but... See, the problem with it was I feel like we were supposed to be mad at Grace in this episode because of all the stuff she said, but Brianna had been terrible to her all season, so I kind of thought in a lot of ways she was justified, but she wasn't. Not in everything, but in a lot of it, I don't know, her and Brianna had been so awful to each other that season by that point, it just, I don't know. But also, seeing her like that was just hard to see. It was really hard to see. And then Frankie... Well, first of all, seeing Frankie Howe was hilarious, but I didn't like that whole storyline, how it played out with everything, and then, like, her, you know, and Robert letting out Carl. I don't like him. Again, I was worried that they were going to do something really bad. They didn't, so thank God for that, but still, just made me kind of want the episode to be over, personally. Again, you can say that I'm too sensitive, but it's how I feel. 79, the goodbyes. This is the one with Coyote's mom coming to visit. And also Grace and Phil, didn't care for that one. Didn't really care for the Coyote and his mom storyline either. His birth mom, I mean. I did enjoy the ending, though. The ending was super sweet. I'll give it that. Also, I think, was this the episode where Saul was, like, losing his crap at Robert? I think. No, never mind. I'm sorry. Saul's there. But, yeah, it was, you know, it was a fine episode. Okay. 78, the vows. Loved seeing Robert eventually write his vows. I thought that was so sweet. But this was the episode where Saul slept with Frankie. So, that kind of put a damper on things for me. 77, the house. This one was okay. I kind of rolled my eyes at the first thing they thought of about the beach house was that Nick bought it. Like, I know the dialogue was like twisted to make them believe that, but come on, I don't know. I didn't love that, and I showed up at his office, and then of course there was a woman there, and yeah, you know how it goes from there. The rest of the episode was okay. I mean, it was pretty predictable by that point, honestly, but it was fine. 76, the ceremony. This episode wasn't awful, but it just didn't really feel like Grace and Frankie earned that reunion at the end for me. I thought that it felt kind of rushed to me. I don't know. 75, the earthquake. Another season 1 episode. It wasn't my favorite. I don't really have any thoughts on it beyond that. I totally get, though, like, you know, the appeal of it. Like, you know, Saul and Frankie together doesn't work for me, but it works for a lot of people. Grace dating was good. You know, that's how much she was dating, right? I'm not totally crazy. I think, yeah, that was fine. 74, the anchor. I really liked the Frankie storyline. I thought that was a time where over the top worked for her. But again, the Phil and Grace stuff did not do it for me. I'm sorry. And again, the Robert and Saul stuff was good. I definitely got, I mean, they were fighting. Like, I totally got Robert's side. But I mean, okay, this has to be the episode I'm thinking of where Saul was just like screaming. And it was so over the top, but yet perfect, because when Saul screams, it's hilarious. I'm sorry, it shouldn't be, but it is. Again, if I'm talking about the wrong episode here, I'm sorry, because, again, there's a lot of plots to keep in my head, and doing the best I can here. Okay. 73, The Horrible Family. I did enjoy the introspection here, but I didn't like the ending of it, where they all kind of laugh. I'm like, oh, well, we're fine then. Like, they were fine, but still, Grace was right. You know, they did have introspection, and it was important to see that. I didn't care for the Frankie stuff either. It was kind of, it was uncomfortable. It was. I'm sorry. 72, The Other Vibrator. This episode was not bad at all. It was hard to watch, but it was supposed to be. Grace and Frankie were fighting the whole episode. The ending, though, when Frankie had her, like, what was it, like a mini stroke, I think? I can't remember the term. But she had that, and Grace is, like, freaking out. That was a scary ending. Oh, my God. And I liked, you know, I like seeing like that all the emotions. It was good. The reason it's low is because of Nick. Nick shows up in this episode, and he is cringy to the max. Like, truly, he makes me uncomfortable. And I feel like the show never properly acknowledges that. 71, The Credit Cards. Like, the second episode of the series, I don't have much to say about it. It was okay. I kind of didn't like that they froze the women's credit cards. I didn't like that. Neither did Saul. Still. They kind of dropped the ball in the ending, though. Like, with Frankie, like, Grace was leaving Frankie to her house, but then she ended up changing her mind. I wish we'd seen the scene where she talked to Frankie. I thought it was a bit of a missed opportunity and a weird decision. 70, The Boar. This one was... Saul annoyed me in this one. I really liked seeing Frankie and Robert apologize, though. That was the best part. Also, Grace and Saul, when Grace was messaging Phil, that was hilarious. I did enjoy that, but, you know, I didn't care for the Jacob stuff, because I just don't care for the Jacob stuff. And again, this was like... Sorry, this is, like, really bad, okay? There we go, sorry. However, the Phil stuff was really taking off, and I did not care for the Phil stuff. Except for the first... Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. 69, The Chicken. What was that woman's name that Grace was mentoring? Billy? I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed Robert, or Saul, finally coming clean to Robert. I thought it needed to happen. So, you know, it wasn't the worst, but I also didn't love this episode. It does not stick in my head as something that I loved. But again, we're getting... Like, it was not bad. 68, The Road Trip. This is where I think the Phil stuff actually worked, honestly. Like, it was okay in this one. Like, you know, and it didn't end up working out in the end, which is... I liked that. I thought it was interesting. Also, I thought it was just sweet how, like, Frankie was just trying so hard. And, you know, I believe it's in this episode, this is one of the ones where the tensions are really rising between Saul and Robert, and that was kind of hard to watch, but, like, yeah. 67, The Dinner. Third episode of the whole series. It was fine. Again, I really don't have a lot to say about season 1 episodes. I just didn't love a lot of them. 66, The Circumcision. This episode was okay. It was the last episode. So, like, in the original, like, when we got, like, just the first few seasons of... Jeez, I'm so sorry. When we got the first few episodes of season 7, this was the last one we got. So it was a bit of an ender. Like, when I watched the show for the first time, I finished on this one because the rest of it wasn't out yet. Then it was a good episode overall. Like, you know, the ending with Nick was okay. Saul and Robert, they got robbed. That sucked for them. 65. Oh, I should probably talk about the actual, like, title of the plot. The stuff with Bud. It was okay. It was fine. I have nothing. I'm sorry. And now I have to scroll again. because I got taken where I didn't need to be. Okay, 65. The Pharmacy. This was okay. Again, I thought I didn't love this one. Just wasn't my favorite. Sucked that Frankie wasn't there for Faith laughing. I know she really wanted to be, but, you know, that's just how life works sometimes, I guess. 64, The Rats. This episode was kind of hard to watch. I mean, like, things were really falling apart for Grace and Frankie. It kind of didn't feel realistic that Frankie would want to kill the rats. I feel like that'd be more of a Grace thing. You know, glad that no one actually did, though, because, again, like, you know, I don't know. But, you know, I do feel like that'd be more of a Grace thing. I feel like Frankie being all like, we need to save the rats. Still, though, it was a good episode overall. Robert's musical, that's a sleigh. But it was sad. And again, it wasn't bad. 63, The Rescue. The reason that this one isn't higher, because it's actually a pretty good episode, is because Grace and Frankie were separate. The ending was awesome, though. Just absolutely awesome. And it was nice. It was good, but yet sad to see, like, Frankie trying to, like, you know, make friends with this not Grace. 62, The Retreat. This one was good. This was the one where Grace sees Babe, and sure, you know what? Why not? Estelle Parsons is pretty awesome. 61, The Short Rib. The title of this episode is kind of weird because, I mean, like not the title, but like the reason that it's titled the way it is just strange to me, because that was a strange scene. But seeing that was Principal Dan, was it? Just lose it was strange to see, and it just felt weird, and yeah. But other than that, it was okay. I did think the miscommunication was funny with the thinking Frankie died. I laughed or was dying. That made me laugh hard. But I didn't. I mean, you could see where the ending was going, and I didn't like Frankie kind of shooting himself in the foot. And then, you know, the whole plan failed, which, I mean, it had to fail. But still. 60, The Bad Hearer. Not bad. Not a bad episode at all. You know, Frankie trying so hard to figure out what Jack had told her. The big thing was funny. The ending where the reveal was okay. Again, I didn't like the bunny thing, but other than that, the reveal was good. 59, The Arraignment. This episode is one I genuinely struggle to remember. Like, I remember that it happened, obviously, but I had to really look back. So, okay, I did not care for Frankie and Saul's manipulation of that guy. What was his name? Josh? I did enjoy, though, the stuff with Grace and Nick. I especially enjoyed, like, the courtroom thing. That was hilarious and had me rolling. 58, The Spelling Bee. This one was not bad at all, actually. Like, at all. Frankie with the computer also had me rolling. I enjoyed the stuff with Brianna and Spit. I thought that was sweet that she got a dog. The Grace stuff was okay. The Robert and Sal stuff was okay. The only thing I really did not like was the ending where everyone else was, like, they had someone, and then Frankie just felt like she was just alone. That was just sad. 57, The Invitation. This one was not bad. I actually enjoyed the Brianna stuff in this one. I also, like, I enjoyed, you know, this was sort of the lube, so slay for that. 56, The Squad. This one did have some good moments. If I'm not mistaken, this was the one where Frankie was, like, dragged across the floor because she refused to leave. I did laugh. Not gonna lie, I did laugh hard. I also enjoyed them calling Saul and Robert for help. Was that this episode or was that the one before? Again, I am sorry if I'm screwing up these plots, like the details, because again, it's hard to keep them all straight in my head. But yeah, the whole stuff with Karina G was a bit much. Like, it had to be a bit convenient, and I'm glad they did it like that, but it was a bit convenient. But still, it was a good episode. 55, The Hinge. The stuff with Frankie and Teddy kind of worked, but not like Grace and her brother did. Not even a little. But even though Frankie did it first, it worked so much better with Grace and her brother. The stuff with Grace, though, was hysterical. Oh my god, I laughed so hard. And then Barry, of all people, being the one to fight. It was perfect. Okay. 54, the sex. Funny episode overall. I did like the back and forth with Grace and Frankie, and I liked the little flashbacks where you got to Grace's night with Guy. That was funny. The stuff with Brianna and Robert and Saul was pretty good too overall. 53, the surprises. Yeah, okay. I did not see it coming about Jack and Robert and Saul. But, that was an interesting twist. And I was interested in the way they dealt with it. And, I'm glad that that's not why Jack and Frankie broke up. 52, the end. First episode of the series, and it was pretty good. It definitely hooked me in. It's not the first episode I saw, actually, but it was the first episode of the series, and it was really, it was good. Everything came together nice for the first episode, and it was a slay. 51, the beginning, the last episode of the series. I absolutely called that this was going to be titled The Beginning, and I'm glad that it was. But, yeah, it was a really good, okay. It had some good moments. The best thing about it was Robert and Saul, for sure, no question about it, and Grace helping Frankie paint. The whole thing with the death, it was nice to see Dolly Parton, but that just felt a bit much for me, because it's not something the show usually does. And then it did, and that's how you wanted to end that? And the whole thing felt super rushed with everyone getting their quick wrap-up plots. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like the show could have ended better, but it definitely could have ended worse as well. 50, the Tappies. The stuff with Sheree in this one was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I was rolling at, the whole, real estate agent cover-up thing. The stuff with the Tappies themselves were not bad. I was kind of neutral about that plot. I am glad Robert got his award, though. 49, the bachelor party. This one was pretty good. The stuff with Grace and Frankie was good. The bachelor party itself was pretty good overall. I definitely laughed a lot. I thought, and it was a very good episode for Grace and Frankie's friendship, too. I also enjoyed how there weren't as many plots because the kids were in Saul and Robert's plot. 48, the aide. Okay, it was funny. The fact that they hired John Margaret was hilarious. It cracked me up. And that whole, and the with the aides that they didn't like was good too. It was good. 47, the alert. So this has a really good plot and a really bad plot. The really bad plot was the whole thing with Saul retiring. Or being forced to retire. Didn't like that at all. The good plot was the stuff with Grace and Frankie and their almost business partnership, whatever that was. And of course, the stuff with the panic buttons. Grace, didn't she destroy hers? And then Frankie accidentally pressing it. I would do that. If I had one of those things, I would accidentally press it. And I thought that was hilarious. 46, the trophy wife. This one was good. I loved seeing, this was one where Jack first showed up, and I thought that it definitely worked with him and Frankie much better than her and Jacob ever did. The stuff with that woman and Grace, that was cringy, but I'm glad Grace apologized. And again, I just, you could totally see Grace saying something like that. It was also good to see Grace and Frankie in an episode together. They were just together. They weren't necessarily doing everything together, but they were it was just nice to see them both just kind of being there, and we could have a bit of that banter without having to take over the episode. It was just it was a bit change, and it worked for me. 45, the party. Okay. This one is the one with Babe and the maid, basically. I think there were some things about this episode that worked really well. There were some things that didn't. It gets props for tackling a subject that's very important. And again, I don't know why they did it the way they did it. I really don't. I have to assume it wasn't legal in the state at that point. But yeah, definitely an important episode. Worth checking out. 44, The Tremor. Nick was actually really good in this episode. I can admit that. Grace, I love seeing how word Grace was, and Frankie just absolutely denying it and trying to figure herself out, because that's Frankie right there. The whole doctor checking her, doing her checkup, but like trying to play it like a date was, that was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. 43, The Negotiation. Love this episode so much. It would actually be much higher if not for the huge continuity error. This is the only episode where Grace shows any interest at all in her grandchildren. 42, The Wire. Loved the friendship message in this episode. Loved that they just realized that Nick shouldn't turn in his friend. It was sweet, and I loved the beginning of it. Frankie's amazing grace about the toilet was just hysterical. 41, The Musical. I kind of did love this one overall. Like, Frankie's reactions to things were just so relatable. Like, not relatable, but like, I think they would be, and they felt very realistic. Like, yeah, I'm sure it was relatable for a lot of people. Like, it felt very realistic the way she was, and there was tension between her and Grace, a lot of tensions, but like, it worked. It worked well. 40, The Elevator. This was the flashback episode, and though it's not my favorite to watch, when I re-looked at it and rethought about it, I do think it's quite good overall. And, you know, really seeing stuff. I liked Grace and Ricky had a sweet moment, although I do think, you know, it wasn't necessarily deserved completely, but overall it was good. Seeing Madison form was good. You know, it was good. And then again, seeing that Robert and Saul had almost told them. Like, it almost happened. 39, The Labels. Really good episode. I didn't like Grace interrupting Coyote's thing, though. That was pretty rude. But good episode overall. Like, seeing, you know, the whole labels thing, I've mentioned it before. It was funny with the two, like Grace and Saul and Frankie and Robert. That was funny. The end reveal, though, hands down, it makes the episode. Like, just like Frankie telling Grace and her trying to be all whatever about it, and then she's just devastated. 38, The Roomies. This episode just had a lot of laughs. I mean, it was going to with Robert and Saul staying with them and the whole stuff with the money. It was funny. Really good episode. 37, The Incubator. This one was really good too. The whole, like, you know, business thing and stuff. It was really good, and it really worked for me. And I really liked seeing that they were serious about this business thing. Like, it was good to see that for another episode. Loved Brianna and Frankie making up. That was really, really, really sweet. Hated... What the heck was I going to say? Oh. The way the whole, like, money thing, like, I love that Brianna did that, but I just hated that it was a secret, because you knew it was going to come out. It did. I didn't really mention it in the gun episode, but it did. Colossally. 36, The Art Show. Love the whole Kenny Loggins thing. Love the Art Show thing. After a really, like, you know, intense second part of season 2, it had me crying a lot. This one had me laughing a lot. So that was nice. Again, good to see their business and everything, and yeah. 35, The Scavenger Hunt. This episode was seeing everything come to a head with Frankie, like, why Frankie was so upset about, like, Grace and Cherie. It felt so real. Sucks for Bud and Allison, though. Like, that you know, people were not trying. Some people were. Some people were trying hard. But not everyone. But overall, super good episode. And I also liked, you know, the ending with Cherie, where Frankie just realized that, like, you know, she should give her more of a chance. And again, her deciding to come home was just super sweet. 34, the laughing stock. It's always interesting with Frankie to see an episode where she really, like, shows, like, when she just really, like, shows her, like, being upset or feeling awkward or vulnerable or whatever. And this episode definitely has that. It was overall just a really, really good episode. The stuff with Robert and Saul was, yeah, by that point, I mean, yeah, I didn't really love that, but I did love the Grace and Frankie stuff a lot. And again, them just looking for their toilet was funny. Okay, 33, The Secrets. This was, like, Grace and Frankie's, I think, their first big fight since they, like, you know, become friends, like, really become friends. I'd say that was in episode 5, The Fall. But it was quite well played. I enjoyed it. The Saul and Robert stuff was also quite enjoyable to watch for some reason. It just was. Like, it was pretty cliche, honestly. And I don't, like, it wasn't necessarily a cheating fault, so it still, like, but I feel like I wouldn't have necessarily, like, thought I would love it. But, because, again, it was a pretty cliche storyline, and it was, you kind of got Saul's side, but at the same time, they weren't technically together, so personally, for me, I didn't really get it. But it was really enjoyable to watch. I love that. Didn't care for the kid stuff so much, but that's okay and pretty normal. 32, The Pop-Ups. This is a pretty average episode overall. It was the beginning of the Teddy stuff. But the reason it gets... Oh, the vibrator selling was good. But the reason it gets bumped up is because this is the one I'm pretty sure we find out about Arlene's... like, her... Whatever she has, like, a dementia or something like that. I thought that the way that was done was so well done and so good. 31, The Newlyweds. Frankie played this episode, like, Lily Tomlin in this episode was just so good. Like, just the way her emotions, like, she was trying not to show how she felt about Grace getting married and just be happy about it, but then and the toast happened and you could tell she was just so not happy about it. It foreshadowed the marriage falling apart really well because that toast was just so terrifying. Like, it was just, the way it was done was just so, it was done really well. And you could just tell they were getting married for all the wrong reasons, I think, anyway. Again, it sucks for Bud and Allison because there was a going away thing and it kind of ended up being about Grace and Nick, but yeah, I mean, sorry. 30, The Fall. I didn't love the dream sequence in this. However, I did love Grace and Frankie really becoming, like, this is their first episode that really, like, they were, like, really making friendship progress, so that was really good. Also, I enjoyed the fact that it was just the three of them. I enjoyed there wasn't a bunch of storylines going on. I thought that was quite good. I kind of wish they'd done more episodes like that overall. Like, I love the Robert and Saul stuff, I really do, but, like, it would have been nice to just have some nice, like, episodes with, even if we just had, like, Grace and Frankie and then Saul and Robert, nothing but the kids, that would have been nice. 29, The Home. This episode has a soft spot, I have a soft spot for it because it was the first episode I saw of this show. Not the full thing, but I did see, like, the second half of it. It was overall still, even without that, it was a really good episode. It had really been leading up to it for, like, the whole season. But they didn't make it too dark. Grace and Nick broke up, which I knew wasn't going to last, but it was nice while it lasted. And yeah, it was a really good episode. 28, The Website. Definitely another really good one. Frankie, like, fixing the websites thing was super good. I really, really liked that. Didn't necessarily care for the Mallory Principal Dan stuff, but that's okay. 27, The Funky Walnut. Loved the ending of this, and I thought the stuff with Robert and Saul was pretty good. I've heard people say that the way that they addressed the cancer thing wasn't the best. I don't know much about that, but I just feel like I should put that out there. I am surprised the cancer storyline wasn't a bigger storyline, though. It just kind of happened, and then it was done. But the ending of that episode, with the rise up and with Grace and John Margaret singing, like, yes! 26, the video. Oh boy. This one's hard to watch. It is. But it's just, it's so, it feels, again, really well-deserved. Like, for the arc Frankie's on, it makes so much sense. And the ending, you could just see how upset Grace was, and that made sense too. It all just worked. And the other stuff in the episode was overall good. 25, the prediction. Yeah, this is where we really get into the Frankie's death episode. That was sad. Frankie trying to, like, just figure it out was something. And the ending with Grace's panic attack was scary. 24, the psychic. Another really good episode. It felt, this one, it felt like really like old-timey Grace and Frankie, and that really worked. The backgrounds, like, not the background, like, the stuff with kids was whatever. I believe this was the first, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think this was the first episode where we ever saw a hint of Robert's Alzheimer's, and that was just terrifying. 23, the Bonita Banditas. This was really funny. Love this one. Just got a really, like, a lot of good laughs out of it. 22, the tub. Oh, man. Between Frankie losing the baby and Grace getting conned, you could really see that things were kind of getting out of their control. And it was a weird juxtaposition to see that and then see, like, you know, Robert and Saul were having problems of their own. Not those kind of problems, though. It was just a weird juxtaposition. But it all worked. And again, you know, the arc in that season was coming along really well for Grace and Frankie, so that was good. Not good for them, but good, like, for the overall arc. You know what I'm saying. 21, the expiration date. I thought the stuff with Nick and Grace was so well done. And Frankie kind of accidentally getting herself legally killed was hilarious. Probably funnier than it should have been. 20, the focus group. I mean, come on. How could I not crack up at this episode? They were, like, literally, I mean, the vibrators thing and the way it happened, it just, the whole thing was done so well. And the Robert and Saul stuff worked quite well for me in this episode. I thought it was pretty realistic, you know, with Robert getting into his musical stuff. If that's what I'm thinking of. Again, I'm not totally, I'm sorry, I feel like I got these details wrong. Okay, 19, the floor. Hilarious comedy with Jane and Lily there. That was really well done, I think. The stuff with the kids was okay. Loved Robert and Saul coming to help them in the end, and loved all that stuff with them, and yeah. 18, the burglary. Hilarious episode. Couldn't not crack up at everything going on. The whole thing was just done so well, and the music, like, when they found out about the burglary, oh god, it was perfect. 17, the coup. Loved that this was the one where the business venture came up. Loved that part of it. Hated that they ruined Bud's birthday party. That's the only bad thing about the episode, though. Everything else was perfection itself. 16, the bender. Ooh, yeah, this one. This was the first one with Babe, and I definitely liked her right away. Grace was also, I mean, this was the one where you would really think Grace might have an alcohol problem. I will say that about it. Their fight was it was good. Like, it made sense to me that would happen. Like, that Grace would be like that, because again, she does feel comfortable with Frankie. It doesn't excuse stuff she said. Not okay. But it was a really good, and I did like that, you know, the kids meeting Jake. I thought that was good, even if I don't like the man very much. I keep, like, bashing on Jake. I do want to say I love the actor. Just saying. Okay. 15, the Vitamix. Love the dictation mistake in this episode. I howl every time. I'm just laughing so hard. The stuff with Grace and Frankie in the house was good. Really thought that was strong stuff. Best part of it for me was Robert talking to Coyote. That was the best part. 14, The Lodger. I thought the stuff with Cherie was really well done. I thought it was realistic that Frankie would be upset about it, but it was also realistic that it would happen. Like, definitely, you go, Grace, make new friends. But, you know, you could see that with Frankie unhappy in Santa Fe, why she'd be like that. And even when you saw the scenes in Santa Fe with Frankie, you really got the impression, at least I did, that things weren't going well for her there. It was a really good season opener for season 4. Okay, 13, The Confessions. I thought this one was just a really strong episode. Loved Robert and Frankie. Love Frankie finding out about the cancer, first of all. Why couldn't Grace have found out about the Alzheimer's? And then loved the whole, like, confessions thing that Frankie and Robert were doing. I thought that was, like, definitely the highlight of the episode for me, I think. 12, The Lockdown. This is the episode where Faith was born. Loved that. Loved the dramatic just explanation from Robert about sober Grace. Loved how we saw, like, just, like, the whole, like, lockdown thing, the drama with, like, Oliver and stuff. I mean, that was, they had that coming. They did definitely have that coming. 11, The Test. This is not a popular episode from what I can see online. I love it, though. I don't care if it's cliche. I love it. 10, The Tank. Another super strong episode. Frankie's reaction to finding out about why Grace screwed their chances with Cuban that felt real. I mean, you could take that over the top, but I mean, come on. That was a big deal. That was a big thing, and it was something Frankie specifically really wanted to do. 9, The Sign. That rhymed. I didn't care for the explanation that Brianna's stalking Barry was coming along nicely, but did enjoy the first human glimpse of Nick. The balloon was the best part, of course, and that ending, and Grace and Frankie, like, just laughing, and yes. 8, The Raccoon. Between Grace's feeble old woman impression, Robert, like, just, like, pushing Saul in front of him or whatever he did with the raccoon, and the stuff with Brianna and Barry, and the parents, which I actually enjoyed. This was a really solid episode all around. Also enjoyed that the whole Nick and Grace thing did fall apart because it needed to end. 7, The Last Hurrah. This one was so good. Between Frankie and that dude ending up talking and not having sex, and then Grace and Nick ended up having sex, it just worked so well. The whole thing was just done so brilliantly. I have no complaints about this, honestly, and the ending with, like, Grace and Frankie sitting together, and then Nick's like, oh, well, that's my cue. It was so good. It was a good closing off for Grace and Nick, you know, it really was. 6, The Knee. I didn't realize it was going to be so high when I watched it before, but this is good. Between Nick being nice to Grace, Grace and Frankie having a really sweet moment at the end, seeing Frankie being competent. I always love seeing competent Frankie. And her and Jacob ending, which needed to happen. This was a really, really strong episode. 5, The Crosswalk. Yes, Frankie. I loved her in this episode. She was just so... I loved her figuring, like, you know, doing something, like, figuring out she wanted to do something and then doing it, making it happen. Also, thought the reveal of Grace's real age was interesting. It was mean of Brianna to do it that way, but it did feel very in character. Loved her and Frankie talking, and then the whole thing. It was just done really well. 4, The Change. This episode is amazing. Nick goes to jail, so that was an interesting twist. But the reason it's this high for me is because of this one scene when Frankie and Joan Margaret are in the restaurant in trouble, and neither of them have their phones, and they need to call someone, and the only number Frankie knows is Grace's. I don't know why, but that made me well. I also really liked just how much Grace wanted to make up with Frankie. It was nice that Grace had made a mistake instead of Frankie. I liked that aspect of it, and I just liked how just genuinely awful Grace felt about it, especially after she found out exactly what Cuban had done to Nick in the past. Also, the stuff with Saul on the motorcycle, oh man, you knew that was going to go well. And the toilet, flooding, and then just Robert, oh, I knew they should have stuck to vibrators, had me cracking up. Okay. Number 3, the wedding. This is not a fun episode to watch. Emotions are running high. Grace and Frankie have their biggest fight in the whole show, but it is done beautifully. I hate that Nick asked Frankie to marry her. No, not Frankie. Grace to marry him, but even that, it felt realistic for Nick's character. And the Impossible Dream stuff, I'm still not sure what that song's called. I feel like it's not called The Impossible Dream. But that stuff was just so good, and it was also good. And we had, like, one of the only nice Peter moments with him saying that Frankie was having a good day because her son got married that day. Like, that was so sweet. Loved that. And the ending was just, oh, so sad. Okay, 2, the panic attacks. This episode, a lot of it was meh, but the stuff with Grace and Frankie was everything. First of all, we had a Frankie Brianna scene, which was really nice to see. Grace, having her panic attacks and then her breakthrough about why she was having them, and it really brought home just how much Frankie meant to Grace, and that was beautiful, and I loved it, and that episode always makes me cry. And number 1, we have the paprikash. I struggle with these last few episodes because I wanted number 1 to be one that had stuff for all, like, good stuff for all the characters. It's impossible for me to find one that has stuff for all the characters that's good. Like, the stuff with Brianna was not great. I did not love it. Like, her and Barry broke up. I mean, the whole thing was just, it felt very weird, but I decided to let that go because everything else in this episode was amazing. We had the stuff with that director, or the critic, and Saul, and when he changed the review and the reason why, and that was so sweet. And we had the stuff with Grace and her brother, which was so good. And then, again, Grace, and that kind of linking back to when, because Frankie thought she was going to die soon, so it was like when she died, she would not be remembered as ordinary. She would be remembered as special, and I thought that was just super sweet messaging and so good. And that concludes my ranking for Grace and Frankie, and it is still the 29th. It will not be posted on the 29th, but it is like 11:56 or something like that, so I did finish it on the 29th, so thank God for that. Oh my God, I can't believe okay, anyways, I almost didn't do that, so I'm glad I did. And oh my God, my camera angles were terrible. I don't even know if I've been in the frame this whole time. I should not do this on a spinny chair. Well, I'm so sorry if you haven't been able to see me. I didn't realize that was happening till just now. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This series has been a lot of fun to do. I probably won't do another series right away because I don't really have one ready. And also, I'm not sure I'll have the time to focus on a big series. So I'll probably do some movie reviews next. I've never really done that, but why not? So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and have a great day.